Well, as comfortable and as short as possible. That does not sound too good at all. So much to get into on this edition of Tonight's the Night, the unofficial Dexter uh, uh, podcast. So, without further ado, let's get it, folks. All right. Good evening to those of you on the East Coast. A good evening also to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to Tonight's the Night, the unofficial Dexter podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, and I apologize for our co-intro. I realized that we were having some issues with our audio, but it's all good. It is a live show. It's the nature of doing a live show, but I'm glad to have you here with us. If you're joining us, Dark Passenger, you are also keen to travel down the world that is the rabbit hole of Dexter. I'm not going to be alone in talking about what happened in episode 5, titled Murder Horny. But yes, I will not be alone in talking about today's episode. So be sure to stick around as I will have a special guest joining us. But as you will know, I'm going to get into our brief synopsis of the episode. And after that happens, we'll have our guest host. We'll get into our themes, our analysis, as well as some of our theories. So without further ado, we're going to dive into the synopsis. But I just wanted to remind you guys, if you guys are watching us live, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. However, if you aren't watching us live, just know that after the show airs, I will be timestamping a lot of this episode. So that way you can skip back and forth to different components of what we discuss on tonight's episode. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. So let's get into our theme, or I should say, get into our plot. One moment. So, as I said, this episode was titled Murder Horny. And we're going to get into some spoilers, so I will warn you ahead. But picking up from last week's episode, Dexter intercepts Harrison from turning himself into the precinct. And they regroup back at Dexter's place momentarily. However, Harrison's still in shock regarding Dexter's resurrection, so to speak, or or him turning back up. He rejects Dexter's attempts to reconnect, leaving Dexter emotionally vulnerable. So, as a result of being emotionally vulnerable, he seeks out Mia, or should say, go here, Mia, of course, from the serial killer dinner group that he recently joined to fill in that void. And in the meantime, while he is, trying to fill in that void, we see, and I just had it here, Mr. Prater. We see him preparing for an interview, which provides further insight into his origins and upbringing. Elsewhere, thinking Mia to be a kindred spirit based on her MO of disposing men who victimize women, it soon becomes clear upon further inspection that she is far more bloodthirsty and far less virtuous than initially anticipated. Believing Dexter to still be Red, the rideshare killer, whom we, of course, know Dexter already got rid of, she eventually offers Dexter opportunity to collab with her on a kill. However, this collab would end in disappointment, and in true representation of the episode title, Mia gets murder horny as she decides to seek a victim all her own. This is of course after her failed attempt in trying to collab with Dexter on a kill. However, Dexter, always thinking ahead, uses the opportunity to set Mia up as she attempts to kill her next victim. And in doing so, Dexter manages to pin the murder of the hotel victim at Harrison's job to her and take her off the board as a threat by getting her arrested and detained. Harrison, catching wind of Mia, aka Lady Vengeance, being linked to the victim's murder, confronts his father about whether he helped to frame Mia. And again, this is her being arrested, but he confronts his father to see if he was, of course, responsible for pinning the murder that he was responsible for, Harrison, that is, if Dexter was the one responsible for framing Mia with that said murder. And it is in this moment, or in this interaction, that it allows Dexter and Harrison the opportunity to open up with one another, and it allows Dexter also the opportunity to share, information that Harrison has long been seeking regarding his past. Back in jail, in her efforts to ensure that no connections of her membership in the serial killer dinner club get connected to her employer, Leon Prater, Charlie visits Mia about her next steps. And as I wanted to mention at the top, it ends on a very foreboding note of her mentioning that she will, ensure that Mia's stay is as comfortable and as short as possible. And then we get to our credits. So that was our episode. But that's not what we're here for. We want to get into dissecting this episode and what it's all about. So before I do that, I want to introduce today's guests. They're a good friend of mine, local here to the DC metropolitan area, critic and host of the website and YouTube channel known as Watch or Pass. So without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. David Stark. Give me 1 second. David, what's going on, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. So, man, we had quite the episode this week. And just to give your initial impressions, what were your thoughts on what happened in this week's episode?
I was mixed on it. I liked some of the twists. I like kind of how Dexter dealt with Mia's character, and how he wrapped up with Harrison. I thought that was an interesting kind of twist. I liked Mia's character. Unfortunately, I don't know if we'll see much of her, and I kind of love some of their interactions. But I don't know, the writing felt a little corny, especially that pivotal scene where Dexter and Harrison are talking. There was some pretty cheesy lines in there. I don't love that we barely got any Mia, because I thought she was a pretty interesting character. Now maybe we'll see more of her, but we'll see what happens. And Harrison's dilemma felt, I don't know, I guess it kind of fits with what they need, but the way that he murdered that character earlier didn't feel like someone who's torn on what to do, and the way that they then dismembered it. But I don't know, do you want my slide rating, or are you gonna jump in as well?
Yeah. We can jump right into it. I guess we'll, the one thing that we can do now is just getting into themes. I'll quickly get into my impressions, and then we can hop into that. I guess one thing that, and I'll talk about it later on in the show, that I did like is what they did with the character of Mia. I thought that they were going to go a route that they've gone in past seasons of Dexter, and I was like, oh, we're doing this again with, of having someone who's an ally of Dexter. And I was like, oh, thank God they're not doing this again. So I do like kind of that heel turn that they had with that. And I do appreciate, I know you were saying that it was a little corny, but I did appreciate this new, I guess, wrinkle, or this new chapter in the relationship that is developing between Dexter and Harrison. So getting into the themes, I feel like that's a great segue into one of the things that seemed very prevalent for me in watching this episode. And one of those things, getting into thematic slides, is the idea of abandonment and being an orphan, because we kind of get that revisited multiple times in this episode. I mean, you have the matter of Harrison himself, who is, you know, for all intents and purposes, an orphan, based on how we met him in New Blood and where he is at the beginning of this season, because at this point he, you know, he believes that his father is dead, prior to now. And then also even with Prater. So, you know, what are your thoughts on that and kind of showing um, that idea of abandonment as a youngster and how it has shaped how people have what they've become as adults?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting, you know, through line that we have, like with Dexter essentially being abandoned, and then Harrison, and now Prater. I think we need to know more about, you know, Prater's upbringing, because they just kind of like whet the appetite here by just giving us little sprinkles here.
I know, and I definitely have some questions for you about that when we get into theories, because you're right. They do tease a lot of stuff in there, and I'm like, oh, I want to know more. I want to know more. um, but were there any other things, even outside of that abandonment piece and that orphan, that idea of being an orphan, that kind of struck a chord with you in terms of a theme that we got in this episode?
I liked the theme. You know, you kind of talked with the, you know, the Mia turn and the way that they changed that up. I liked, you know, how the, you know, she kind of blames the media for her persona, and how she
Yeah,
kind of rolled with it. Like, I thought that was interesting that, you know, she, like, the media has crafted this whole narrative for her, and she hasn't really even embraced it. She hasn't even doesn't even seem to like try to lean into it. She said she kind of leaned into it the first couple times, but then now she just enjoys it, and the media is kind of like rolling with it. I thought that was interesting, because it does show how like your public persona can be very different from who you actually are, and how it can like shape your narrative even if you don't want it to, right? Like, she didn't go out of her way to make to like to target people who would fit that narrative. She was just like, they just keep saying they are, and it just happens. So
for sure, for sure. And I mean, another one that is keeps coming up again and again, and it's just fascinating that they keep revisiting it, is whether you want to call it the the unique bond that you have as a parent or as a father, like that keeps coming up again and again and again. And I just find it interesting the role that Blessing and his family kind of play a role in Dexter kind of assessing, you know, where he fits in the world, and where that humanity comes in, where they kind of provide that example of and in an indirect way teaching him uh the ins and outs of the importance of that bond, because it keeps like I said, it kept coming up again and again. There were other episodes where we had an instance where you had an interaction with Dexter and Blessing. I believe it was Blessing's daughter, and she was talking about that idea of, yeah, you know, kids butt heads with their parents all the time, but you know, underneath it all, you know, they still care about their parents as much as they try to act like they don't, or they act like they, you know, they don't want to, you know, have that connection with their parent. And then there was a similar instance of that in this episode, where there was kind of like a morsel of I guess you could say, teaching for Dexter that I found interesting, where they keep using Blessing's family kind of as an example for him to kind of model after. I don't know if you picked up on that same thing, or if it hit you a different way.
you know, I'm glad that you mentioned it, because I actually didn't really love that scene. It kind of felt almost like a throwaway. Like,
Okay.
it does, you know, I do like your analysis of how they're teaching Dexter how a normal family should interact. I mean, Blessing's family seems to be almost like superhuman in how close they are and how
Right.
perfect they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I guess the only reason why I say that is because, I mean, I understand your perspective of you saying that it seems like they're too perfect, but in the interactions that they have, I mean, we get some wrinkles in there about, you know, things would say otherwise. I mean, we have the example with the daughter of her, living in her parents' basement, so to speak, and having her, having her secret, part of her place where she, kept her stuff that she didn't want her parents to know about. But and and just that idea of, I mean, I still feel like there are we. I have a feeling we might learn a little bit more about them. I know right now it feels like I can understand where you're coming from. It feels like they're too perfect. But I feel like oftentimes in Dexter, just like you were saying, we have examples of those masks that we see with a lot of characters, and they're putting on one face, and then we come to find out that they have different layers to them. Um, but in speaking to that, I guess the other thing that I wanted to also, get into is just the talking more about what you were saying about that masks aspect, because just as we were saying with the character of Mia, um, where you have that perspective of the persona that you have in one in one case, but then what it can actually transform into, because I feel like it kind of acts as a mirror. Her journey kind of can act as a mirror for what could happen to Dexter, what might happen to Dexter, because just as he said, initially it started off in I guess you can say a virtuous or noble reason as to how she got started, but as we come to find out, the more that she did it, it started to become less about that and more about her just getting that need. So what are your thoughts on that, of that kind of being uh, a warning, like a mirror, acting as a warning of what path Dexter could go down?
I think that's an interesting thought. I mean, I think it feels like Dexter has kind of cemented his code and then showed that here, although he did deviate, which was interesting, like that he did kind of deviate from what he would normally do. I did think that that was like a nice slippery slope, though. Like you said, she started with this noble purpose, and kind of as she did it more, she realized that maybe what initially was just kind of like this horrible incident that she had to rectify now just became some sort of like thrill that she was seeking that she wasn't getting in other ways. And I guess that could be analogous to kind of what Dexter does. He still seems to go by the code. He still seems to try to stay within the code, but he has deviated occasionally when needed. And so hopefully he won't go down that slippery slope. I don't think that'll let him though, because he seems to still be following his rules regardless of like the circumstances around him.
Okay, all right. Well, getting into
Uh,
our
okay. I
go
did
ahead.
like your talk about the masks though, because one thing I was wondering
Yes.
is, I thought it was interesting that Dexter started to drop his persona around Mia. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if he was going to be Red during their date, if he was going to like, because he knew enough about him to like say a few things, but he like fully was opening up, which I was like, Dexter, what are you doing? Like you're
Yeah,
playing.
right. He's opening up about where he was from, because up to that point she thought he was from New York. He opened up about the bowling thing. A bowling thing was like a big thing with him. So like that was interesting that he was, as you said, he was willing to shed that facade and open up in that way. But I did get a kick out of the interaction that he had with him and Harry, of him going back and forth of as to whether he should move forward with that relationship with Mia. Um, but I feel like that is, David, a good segue into our theories, because one thing that was talked about last week that I thought they may try to do, but I didn't think that they would be brave enough to do. But we had the question answered this week: is, was it really Dexter? Because I got into a theory with our guest last week, and kind of went down the rabbit hole of, what if it wasn't really Dexter and it's really Harrison's grief or his guilt, and maybe Dexter is his Harry that is stopping him from going to the precinct, but they didn't go that route. So here we are. But diving into Leon, we were talking about at the top, right, of the kind of the breadcrumbs, so to speak, that they kind of gave of his history. What do you perceive is or theorize are the things that are going on? Because he shared a lot. Like he shared the idea of being an orphan. He shared this whole like adeptness with cooking, apparently. So like I'm very fascinated to know your thoughts on what we have going on with Prater.
So my first thought when he was talking about, his parents' death and whatnot, like, I almost wonder if he is the cause of that, because like it's a tragic start, but he kind of he goes into it and doesn't want to focus too much, and then he holds a gala every year to like commemorate the brave people who saved them. But I was thinking like maybe
It's a twisted way of commemorating him
his
taking out his parents.
yeah, his like first kill, and maybe that's why he is so fascinated with serial killers and fascinated with that, like, the darker true crime aspects, because maybe as a kid he did this and can't do it again, or wants to live vicariously. I was wondering if there was like going to be some darker plot there with what happened to his parents and how he kind of like got his origin story.
Okay. Because I was going to say the only thing that I was thinking of in that regard is I feel, and you may disagree, I feel like that whole fascination that he has with all of these serial killers is the fact that he has never done it. Like that's why he's so obsessive about it, is because he has never done it, and maybe in the season he will get his first one. But because he's like so out of reach and hasn't done it yet, that's why he's so obsessive about it versus him actually, because I feel like he wouldn't collect all of those things and be so obsessive if he had.
Yeah, his own thing.
That might be the connection, but maybe it could be a situation with what is it, with the Trinity killer that we had in the prior season, where maybe he was in the orbit of someone in his personal circle, family wise, that did do that, and maybe he was exposed to it, but he never actually did it. And maybe the whole like cooking thing, and I could be wrong about this, so it may not come to be true later on, but if I am right, then you heard it here first, is maybe they go down the Hannibal Lecter route with maybe his parents, and he was very close with his parents and they were very close with him, but he just couldn't go through with following it exactly in their footsteps. And now as an adult, he eventually gets there.
Maybe, yeah.
This obsessive, fascination that he has. Because I feel like maybe that is somehow connected to his parents that he lost.
Yeah, no, I like that Hannibal Lecter theory. Maybe like his parents did do some horrible things, and like you said, he's living vicariously through these people he's around and feeding a kind of need to, like, I don't know. He seems to be very good with cooking meat, so maybe that was like,
Until he finally follows through with it.
yeah.
So
I mean, the one thing that makes me think he's a little more ruthless than expected was that scene with
Charlie.
Charlie, yeah, where she's like, "There's a problem." It almost seems like a throwaway scene. So she's like, "There's a problem." He's like, "Well, do I pay you enough?" And she's like, "Yeah,
Right.
like, I'll take care of it." Like, it almost seems like a scene that doesn't really matter until you think like that shows that there's this underlying, I don't know, coldness to him, this underlying like darkness in him that he's just like, "We'll just make it go away. Like, I don't care, just make it go away." Versus what he's kind of shown up before. All the other times he's been like this gregarious host and this, like philanthropist and all of that. So I feel like there is probably some darker side. I don't know if he's done it before or if he's going to do it again. I kind of like your idea that maybe he surrounds himself with these people to build up the courage or to kind of like hear the stories.
Yeah. That's what I was like leaning towards. We kind of got into it on the theme part, but I wanted to, take some more time on that. Is just that idea of what we had with Mia and what she represents. Um, I guess, do we think it will ever come a time where, just as we see with Mia, that the code will, there'll come a time where it won't be enough
Where
for Dexter?
where Dexter's not going to follow the code with her.
Yeah,
Maybe, although I mean, he was pretty disgusted by her turn. Like I was thinking, like, dude, Dexter, like you can fix her. Like maybe like she started off with a noble purpose. Maybe she needs that code to rein her in, and
yeah.
then you could become this cool hot serial killing duo. That's what I was kind of like hoping would happen, and then he seemed to like turn on her very quickly. So I don't think. I mean, it doesn't sound like from his turn on her and how quickly he was like disgusted in her that he would have a problem with the code. I think he just saw her as a way to like kill two birds with one stone, get rid of her, not make it look suspicious because she's not going to just disappear, and also solve his Harrison problem.
Yeah, no, I hear you. No, because like I said, I just found it fascinating that a lot of times with a lot of these side characters, they kind of use it as a example of, this is what happens if you go down this road, or this is what, they've used that a lot of times throughout many of the seasons of Dexter, and it seems like they're continuing, down that same path, with this show. So, but
I mean,
yeah,
I think they could have been using it to show, like to show Dexter the problems or the consequences of opening up, because he opened up to her and was going to reveal more to her, I think, and then she wasn't who he thought. She was more reckless than he was. Like she wanted to just jump in a car and just do it, and he's like, no, like we might have a camera. Like he is cold and calculating, and she isn't, because I don't think she has to be. I think that no one suspects her,
sure.
so she can be more kind of aloof and more kind of like just carefree with her passion, whereas Dexter is very kind of like meticulous and plans it out and makes sure that there's no loose ends. So
All right, all right. So, getting into, just extending beyond the impressions that you have, like if you were to give a breakdown of the episode and things that you liked and things that you didn't like, what would be your thoughts with episode 5?
I mean, it feels very much like kind of a setup episode. It feels like they're just kind of laying the groundwork for some future bigger consequences, right? Like there was no big kill. There was no, there was a plan here, but it felt like a lot of build up for something that will happen down the line. We just got a little introduction to Leon. Harrison and Dexter are now trying to be a family, and Mia was kind of like revealed of who she is, but there wasn't like, didn't feel like there was any like big pivotal plot point here. It felt like they were just building up towards something later in the season, which is fine. You need those episodes in a full season, but like I said, I liked the twist. I like how Dexter dealt with Mia and Harrison. That was a kind of an interesting little twist there, because I wasn't sure how they were gonna, like, if he was gonna try to like take her out or if he was gonna try to do something else. But I liked how they kind of had him break his code but still kind of like follow it.
Yeah.
I did like the sprinkling of information for Leon. Like I said, I didn't love the writing, especially there was this one line. I key in on like cheesy lines, and so this might
Okay.
just be my personal thing. But when Dexter and Harrison were talking, and Dexter's like, "I have so many reasons to kill, but you're my reason to live," I was like, "Oh my god, what is this, like a rom-com? Like, come on!" Like, that sounds like what happens in every rom-com where they're like, "I didn't know what I was looking for until it was right in front of my face. It's you," and like, we don't need these lines. I think I just keyed it on that. I also, like I said, I wanted more of Mia because I thought she was an interesting character. I did like the serial killer fan club or the serial killer dinner club. I thought that was like fun, and it gave you a lot of fun cameos. So I kind of want to see more of them. So now it seems like
Yes.
the only one left is what, Al, I think, or is there another one left?
We have the. Let me see, because the
Ponytail.
tattoo. our tattoo killer is gone.
Uh-huh.
But we have, I'm trying to think, we have the Gemini that we have him, we have the
Ponytail.
Rumpelstiltskin,
Yeah.
the ponytail. And yeah, it's just and the Lady Vengeance.
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing something. I think that's it. I think that's everybody. So it's just the three of them. If I'm unless I'm missing somebody, I feel like that's everybody.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's everybody.
so yeah, it will be interesting, I guess, in terms of the things that I myself didn't really care that much for. I'll start with the, and this is a nitpick thing that really bothered me, and that was that transition, that stylistic transition that they do with this show. And I had to go back, and I was like, is this like specific to Dexter Resurrection? But when I went back, I realized that they did it in New Blood also, which is that like flash forward like stylistic transition that they do, and I'm like, why are you doing that? It's so
Oh, at the
distracting.
very start, that's
Yeah,
like
it's so
I hate
distracting.
that.
Stop
I hate
doing
that
that.
so much.
Oh, I don't like it, but hey, like subjectively for me, I don't like it. But
Yeah, I don't like it either. I don't want to know. I don't want to have little snippets like a fever dream of what's going to happen before it happens.
but it's not even that. It just reminds me of like a different era. And don't get me wrong, like there were shows that I watched in that era, but I'm like, it feels like it's making it more retro and not bringing it into the current day and age in terms of like what we're watching with TV these days. Because a lot of like, and I won't name any names. There were a lot of like supernatural related shows that were on that slant that did a lot of that. And I watched a lot of those shows, but it was very much of like that early 2000s era where that they did a lot of that, and it was fun for that time. But you know, we get into different eras, and you know things that you know speak to you may not speak to you, you know, now in this current day and age, and that in particular like drives me up the wall. But I do like the heel turn that you had with Mia, and the reason being is, as I mentioned, and they went down the list when he was having a discussion with Harry of all the characters that we've had, you know, throughout the seasons of Dexter, at least in the last couple of seasons of Dexter, where they have been and you'll know what I mean when I say this. They have been sidekicks slash love interests, you know, in prior seasons where you know he Dexter gets a love interest. They have some edge of darkness to them, and he somehow teams up with them. I'm like, oh no, we're doing this again. Let's not do this again. But I'm glad that they, you know, like I said, that they had their heel turn and come to find out that no, she actually falls within the code for Dexter versus being a sidekick that I thought that they want to try to do with this show.
Yeah, I guess they already did the he can fix her
Many
plot in what was it,
times,
season 4, right? I think.
many times.
Yeah.
So, but here's my question to you: we have this relationship between now that has come to a head, with which is another component that I did appreciate with this episode. However corny and sappy it was, I did appreciate that we finally enter a new chapter because I was kind of getting tired of the cat and mouse type of chase between Dexter and Harrison. And then I'm like, okay, finally they resolved their stuff. Like we can move on. I mean, obviously it's not perfect. They're going to have other issues going forward, but at least we can get past all this. Like, oh, you know, I'm mad at you. Let me chase you, and you know, just that back and forth of just that cat and mouse of the father trying to chase after the son and the son trying to get away. Like I'm ready to move on from that part of their relationship. So now that we're in this part of it, knowing that what we know about Dexter and how everything happens with people around him, do you think Harrison's going to make it out of this?
You know, I think he probably will, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Dexter is going to make it out of it, right? That might be the twist, because I can't imagine that they kill another one of Dexter's family members. But again, I guess you kind of need Dexter for the show, so if they want more than one season.
The only reason why I say this, and I realize I'm going back into theories, and this is supposed to be our wrap up, but it's cool, is that they made a point in this episode, if you recall, of them talking about just that idea of teaming up, and at the end of the day, him always having to come back to him being by himself.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
I
mean,
think,
who among us hasn't had performance anxiety on like a first date, right? Like it happens. It's okay, Dexter.
but I think that there is something to that, because like if we really think about it, he hasn't really had any, as much as he's had close people in his lives, in his life, they've all gone sour. Whether, if they've gotten close enough to him, they've either been killed, or when they eventually find out, what he's really about, they no longer are in his circle. Because like, ain't Bautista was like one of his closest friends, and I don't know. Maybe they might do something with that, but I feel like the only reason why Bautista is not in the grave is because that he was able to get away, that relationship was able to end in time before he ended up joining many of the other people that Dexter was close to. Whether it was Bautista, whether it was Quinn, whether it was what is it? I'm brain farting. Our friend Masuka,
Yeah.
like, well, any of those folks that were like a part of Dexter's life, they were just enough away where they weren't in, I hate to say, in his kill orbit. Whether it was him, just by virtue of the interactions, and the relation, the other people that he was trying to take down, none of them really got caught in the crossfire and ended up in the grave. And other ones that got too close to him eventually, met their end. So I don't know. And I feel like the only reason why his son has stuck around as long as he has is because he has abandoned, in a weird way, abandoned his son, actually saved him from how, many other folks that have been close to Dexter have turned out. So
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point because yeah, a lot of people that do kind of get close to him. Although it's interesting, like Rita, I don't think she ever found out enough about him, but he got too close to someone. I guess we'll see what happens with
and
her.
she didn't know him, she
Yeah,
wouldn't have met her end.
yeah.
So
I there might I could see like a coming to a head between like Batista and Harrison because they kind of showcased that in this episode that like Harrison's loyalty is still to Dexter, even though he is angry at him, even though he like blames him. Which
sure,
when he said
sure.
that line of like I wouldn't have killed him if it wasn't for you, I was like Harrison, like you can say that, but he's the one that did it. He's the one
Yeah,
that then like meticulously cleaned it up, which is more than just like a crime of passion. Like the the police person said, like you could have just you could yeah you did a good thing, like you did a good thing in a bad way. It was a bad thing to do, but there was ultimately a justice to it. But then he goes and like cuts the person up and cleans it up and like does the whole Dexter thing, which I don't know if that's fair to blame on Dexter.
and I'm glad you brought that up. And we're gonna weave a little bit back in the theoretical splatter for a moment. Is in talking about Harrison, and I brought this up in other episodes, but it seems like they're kind of diverting away from it. So I kind of like let off of it, of this idea. Is what if they are having Dexter and Harrison come to a head in terms of where their trajectory is? So like Harrison, he's demonstrated that he's not as cold and as bloodthirsty as Dexter is.
Yeah.
That he still has a sense of humanity about him, about what we had with the, I call it the telltale watch of that situation, the guilt with the tell. I know that probably was you
So
probably.
corny. Again, so corny.
I could tell by your face, but yeah, like just in the reactions that he had, even after carrying out that crime, he had thrown up, and that wouldn't have been something that Dexter would have done. Like that wouldn't have been a reaction that Dexter would have had. So what if, as he's getting closer to Dexter, he loses a little bit more of that, and he gets closer to what Dexter is, and Dexter is the one that is able to, in observing Harrison, is able to assess like, oh no, is this how, how I am, or have I, corrupted, my son? Because there was some element of that in New Blood, I feel, but they didn't really dive into that. I feel like as deeply as they could have. But I feel like now that they are now connected, and we've established that they've have some semblance of a bond now, that he's maybe more susceptible to descending, and versus, Dexter being able to assess that and actually gain more humanity. Because I bring that up because I'll never forget that moment in, I guess that would have been, I guess that's the first episode, where he he was pursuing the dark passenger on the subway, and he wasn't able to catch up with him. But he was having a conversation with Harry about just that idea of, hey, this is something new. Like you're actually trying to save people versus, you just fulfilling the need. So maybe in interactions with Blessing and his family of taking, this relationship as a father, more seriously, that he's able to gain more humanity, and they kind of come to a head of him ascending and Harrison actually descending.
I think that's interesting. I think they've made fairly clear that Harrison is good. Like they've kind of drilled that in. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be some interplay here between Dexter fulfilling his need and filling the code, and also, like you said, trying to save people through violence, and Harrison still being angry at him for that, right? Like I think I'm curious to see what his first kill is going to be, what he's going to tell Harrison, like what his first post kill is going to be, what he's going to tell Harrison, and how he's going to like justify that, and what Harrison is going to say, because like Harrison clearly doesn't like what Dexter does, even though there's a quote unquote noble purpose for it. And now that he wants to like be a part of Harrison's life, I think that might mean he has to dial back on the code, which I don't know if he can do, right? Like the whole point of Dexter is that he has this need that has to be fulfilled, and he's found this way to kind of like do it in a socially acceptable way. But I don't know if Harrison will think that that's socially acceptable. So I think there will be, I think there's going to be two conflicts going forward. I think Harrison and Dexter, like what's going to happen when he either has a need to do it or also sees an injustice that he wants to right, because that also seems to be like a newer theme here, is like he's trying to like stop crime and trying to be a hero still within the code. But I also think, going back to Batista, I think there might be some sort of Deb LaGuarta confrontation down the line between Batista and Harrison, where someone's going to have to choose which side they're going to be on, for Dexter.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, David, I don't want to keep you any longer. I really do appreciate you hopping on. If you guys aren't aware, David's on vacation, but he was so nice to hop on here and do this episode and talk some Dexter with me. But before I let you go, can you tell folks where they can find you?
So you can find me, it's WatcherPass. YouTube is where I post most of my stuff, so you can go to youtube.com/WatcherPass. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. WatcherPass in various iterations. Facebook and Twitter is WatcherPass, and then Instagram is WatcherPass Movies. Brian, do you want to do a couple lightning round questions? I don't want to.
Sure thing. Yeah, we can definitely do that. And before we hop into our lightning round questions, I realized you gave what your likes and your dislikes were. How many scopes? How many microscopes?
Microscopes, 3.5 microscopes. Like I've liked the season so far. I thought I really enjoyed like some of the new elements. This one, again, it felt not a filler, but it felt not like a build-up episode. So I didn't love a lot of it, but it's still entertaining enough. I think 3.5 microscopes for me.
Sounds good. All right, ask away.
All right, so lightning round questions. You can feel free to skip any of them. I won't be offended,
Okay.
but I try to keep
All right.
them. When was the last time you went to the ballet?
Oh man. Geez. Probably senior year of high school.
All right, so like a couple
It's been
years.
a minute.
You're a young man.
I'm older than I look, folks.
Tell me your skincare routine. I need it. When was the last time you've been bowling?
Oh, that's. I want to say it's probably a couple of years.
All right. Have you ever picked up a 7-10 split?
I have not.
All right. You gotta keep practicing.
I have not. No.
All right.
I take it you have.
Probably. I mean, when this arm gets going, chaos happens. So, are you a wine person?
Yes, I am a wine person.
All right. What is the most expensive glass or bottle of wine that you have had?
Oh gosh. Actually, I'm a pretty simple person when it comes to my wine. Um, and when I'm thinking of some of the ones that we had, I know that maybe they probably tried to make it seem like it was really expensive, but it was actually relatively cheap. So I'm not particularly bougie when it comes to my wine. But I do enjoy, as being someone who is a foodie, I do enjoy wine being paired with pastas. Certain types of wines, regardless of how fancy or how expensive they are. Some of them pair pretty well with pastas, and I'm a sucker for pastas. So
All right. Hey, you like you like what you like. That's all you need. This series episode also had Dexter get his slides back, his trophies. A
yes,
lot of
yes,
trophies.
indeed.
If you okay, we can frame it a couple ways. If you were a serial killer, what would your trophies be? Or do you have your own trophies? Not for like it could be a collection of memories that you have from like conferences or important interviews, things like that. Do you have any sort of like collection of trophies? You can frame it how you want. I don't want you to answer uncomfortably.
I guess the ones that I have, and you may have something like this since uh, uh, cover the same events as myself over the years. I just have like just an assortment of like all badges of like stuff that I've done like over like 10 or 11 years. Like, so it's really fascinating to look at it like, oh wow, that was from 11 years ago. Oh wow, that was from 12 years ago. Oh, this was from 13 years ago. So it's like all bunched together and wrapped together like in like a bunch, and you could just like hold it in like one hand. So that's pretty cool. Like all the different badges from conventions and film festivals and all types of stuff. I don't know if you have something like that.
So you're like a ponytail. That's like a ponytail, basically, right? I'm not big time like you. I don't go out to the festivals and things
Oh,
like
stop! This guy goes to events too. Don't let him tell you different.
Mine is different. I go to a lot of like concerts and shows and things like that, and they're usually smaller. So if I like the band, I'll usually get like a vinyl and have them sign it. So I've got
Okay,
like vinyls that I've collected from like smaller shows, and then hopefully, when they get bigger and I'm not able to actually meet them anymore, I'll at least have that memory.
gotcha.
I don't even have a record player, but I've got a bunch of vinyls that are signed. So
Shout out to Sylvia. Hello, Sylvia. What's going on? Thanks for watching.
and the last question, I loved the like serial killer dinner party that we had in the last episode. So it's kind of related to that. Do you have a group that you regularly meet up with of like-minded, individuals? I assume, at convention, maybe you have like a standing dinner group or something like that. Is there something like that, some sort of like support group or interest
Oh
group
yeah,
that you
yeah,
have?
yeah, for sure, for sure. I'll give him a shout out right now. Um, there have been some meetup groups that when meetup was like really in its heyday that I was a part of, and a lot of us, we all still connect and go to like event to conventions. We have get-togethers for holidays and things like that, and we don't even have the meetup group doesn't even like exist anymore on the website. So like once the actual meetup like a group disbanded officially on the website, everyone still continued to, on a yearly annual basis, do 4th of July, do Memorial Day cookout, to do what is it, Christmas, do Thanksgiving, like all of those things. So yeah, still do those things. And even I guess even among our crew, because for those that don't know like me and David's history, like I knew David, back when he knew me then too, before doing being critics for films and things like that, when we were just in lines for advanced screenings as the general public. So that's actually how I met David. But yeah, like even some of those folks, shout out to them. Actually, Sylvia is one of those folks, so shout out Sylvia.
There you
um but yeah, like we still connect when we can. I know uh, when it comes, and you can attest to this, when it comes to the kind of that advanced screening culture, you go, I call it eras, where you have a group of people that regularly go to those screenings over a period of time, and then eventually people fall off, and you have a new set of regulars that come in, and then they fall off, and another set. Like it's like a revolving roster, I like to call it. Like if I'm talking about comic book talk, or like superhero teams, like it's like a evolving roster. It doesn't remain the same. So that's been fascinating, because even some of them from the advanced screenings, they joined me at Comic-Con last week, San Diego Comic-Con last week. So for sure.
All right.
How about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of the screening groups, like you said, it kind of goes through eras. You got the people that you hang out with. Although the problem with those is like, this, like after you work all day, you go to a movie, it gets out at like 9, you want to talk to your friends, but then you also want to get back and like cut the review and get it up before you can finally go to sleep. So I don't think we don't hang out as much, but yeah, I'll catch up with people like before the screening, or sometimes meet up for drinks after or before. And then yeah, like if I go to a show, I'm starting to get people that I recognize, and so that becomes like a group of people that you like meet up with at a concert and whatnot. So
Nice,
yeah.
nice, cool, awesome. Well, again, I want to thank David for hopping on this Saturday to talk some Dexter. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on Instagram, or Brandon Choi ENT on X. Excuse me, Brandon Choi underscore
You
ENT
almost dated yourself.
on IG. So there you go. But thank you guys, so much for watching. As I mentioned before, I'll have the show timestamp once we wrap up here. You can also find us on Patreon, of course. So shout out to our Patreon folks that are with us thus far. Shout out to you guys. Thank you guys so much. But with that out of the way, we want to sign off. Stay tuned tomorrow. We will have This Week in Pop Culture, which we will be covering over the things that happened this past week. But till then, guys, thank you guys so much.
All
Thanks
right, thank
again,
you.
David.
Thanks, guys. A lot of fun.